Today we're talking about emotional regulation and how to stay in control of your feelings even when life throws you curveballs. Emotional regulation isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about developing the skills to recognize what you're feeling, understand why you're feeling it, and then choosing how to respond rather than just reacting automatically. Your emotions are like traffic lights. You can't control when they turn red, yellow, or green, but you can control how you respond when the light changes, whether you stop, slow down, or move forward. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole online looking for interesting ways to regulate our emotions, and strategy number 5 might be my new favorite. It's something most people have never tried, and once you see how it works, you might wonder how you ever handled intense emotions without it. Now I want to share 7 of my go-to strategies that I use personally and have used with my patients. Number 1, the temperature reset. This is one of my tried and true favorites because it works quickly and consistently. When you feel that emotional intensity building, maybe you just saw your ex with someone new on social media, or your friend flakes on you again, grab something cold. Ice cubes, a cold water bottle, even a bag of frozen peas. Press it against your wrists, your temples, or the back of your neck for about 30 seconds. This activates your vagus nerve, which basically tells your nervous system to calm down. Think of it like hitting a reset button on your stress response. I first tried this technique during a particularly overwhelming day. I was stressed out, I was on the verge of tears, and just feeling like I couldn't get my emotions under control. But I had a big presentation to give at a major company, so there was no option to just step away or go home. I remembered I had a cold soda in my cup holder, and I pressed it against my wrists and the back of my neck, and within a minute, I could breathe a little easier and think clearly enough to deliver the presentation. It was like my nervous system finally got the signal that everything was okay. The science behind it is fascinating. Cold temperatures trigger your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for that rest and digest state. It's basically the opposite of fight or flight. Number 2, the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. When your mind is racing with worst case scenarios, like imagining all the reasons someone might be pulling away from you, you need something to bring you back to the present moment. This is especially helpful if you tend to dissociate because it reconnects you to your body and surroundings instead of letting you drift into panic or numbness. The way it works is you identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. I had a patient who used this when she started spiraling about her relationship. She'd been dating someone for about 3 months or so, and when he said he was going to go out with his friends instead of seeing her one night like they planned, she instantly jumped to, "He's losing interest in me." Normally, what that would have caused is for her to send like 20 "Are you mad at me?" texts, but instead she stopped. And she worked through the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. By the time she finished naming, the lamp and the chair in her room, the texture of her sweater, the hum of her fridge, the scent of her shampoo, she felt more grounded. She realized she'd been making assumptions and could respond from a calmer, more thoughtful place. This doesn't erase the emotion, but it pulls you out of autopilot mode, which is where both spiraling anxiety and dissociation tend to thrive. Number 3, the story challenge. This tip is especially useful if you often worry that the people you care about might leave you. Our brains are natural story-making machines, and when we feel insecure or anxious about relationships, they tend to fill in the gaps with stories. The problem? These stories are usually driven by fear, not facts. When you notice yourself creating a narrative about someone's behavior, like, "She didn't invite me to lunch, so she must not want to be friends with me anymore," stop and ask yourself, what's the story I'm telling myself right now? What are the facts? What are my assumptions? Write down the actual facts first. Joanna didn't invite me to lunch is a fact. She doesn't want to be friends anymore is a story. Once you separate facts from stories, you can choose to create a more balanced narrative. Maybe Joanna is stressed about work. Maybe she already had plans. Maybe she assumed that you were busy. Maybe she's dealing with something personal. There are so many reasons that have nothing to do with you or your worth as a friend. And when you give yourself the chance to question the story, you also give yourself the chance to feel calmer and more secure. Number 4, the pause protocol. This strategy is all about creating space between the trigger and your reaction. When something happens that usually sets you off, instead of instantly firing back, give yourself a pause. That pause can be as simple as counting to 10, taking a few deep breaths, or stepping into another room for a moment. Honestly, this has saved me so many times. I can think of moments when I've been so hungry, exhausted, and frustrated that someone asking me for help made me want to say, "Are you fucking kidding me?" No. Instead, I've learned, take a beat, breathe, and say, "Give me a second. I'd be happy to help. Just need a moment." That tiny shift has probably saved more of my relationships than I can count. It's also stopped me from blurting out things I don't mean when I'm angry. Even just walking into the bathroom, shutting the door, and breathing for 30 seconds has been enough to keep me from reacting in a way I'd regret later. The pause gives your brain time to catch up to your emotions, and in that space, you can choose a response that you'll feel good about. Number 5, brain reset moves. This is the one that I was telling you about. It's so cool and interesting. When you're triggered, your brain often goes on autopilot, replaying the same emotional patterns over and over. That's when even small stressors can feel overwhelming and send us through the roof, and it's really hard to think clearly. Brain reset moves are simple, unexpected actions that interrupt that autopilot mode and give your thinking brain, otherwise known as your prefrontal cortex, a chance to step back in and take control. These exercises work because your brain loves novelty. When you do something unusual, like you brush your teeth with the opposite hand, or you walk backwards for a minute, or maybe you try to pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time, takes me a second, it forces your neural pathways to fire in new ways. This brief surprise activates your attention, shifts your focus away from the emotional spiral, and signals your nervous system that you're in a safe, manageable environment. Mind-blowing, right? The beauty of brain reset moves is that they're quick, accessible, and can be done almost anywhere. You don't need special equipment, a lot of space, or even extra time, just a willingness to move a little differently. Over time, practicing these exercises strengthens your brain's ability to interrupt emotional patterns before they take over, giving you more control over your reactions and more freedom to respond rather than react. Amazing, right? Before we jump into my next strategy, we need to talk a little bit about triggers. For those of you who struggle in relationships or worry that people might leave you, certain situations probably set off alarm bells faster than others. Maybe it's when someone doesn't text back right away, or when plans get canceled last minute. I remember one of my past patients would completely spiral every time her boyfriend didn't respond to her text within an hour. She'd go from 0 to convinced he was going to break up with her in about 30 seconds. Sound familiar? The first step in emotion regulation is becoming aware of these patterns. Start paying attention to what specifically triggers those intense emotional responses. Write them down if you need to. Knowledge is power here, and we can't try to change something we don't understand. Number 6, cognitive reframing. Cognitive reframing is the practice of looking at a situation from a different, more balanced angle so you can respond in a calmer way. It's not about just think positive or pretending everything is fine. That's toxic positivity. Instead, it's about zooming out and asking yourself, is there another way to interpret this that's more realistic and less fear-driven? Our brains are meaning-making machines. And when we feel anxious, insecure, or stressed, they tend to fill in the blanks with the most threatening explanation possible. It's an old survival mechanism. If our ancestors assumed every rustle in the bushes was a predator, they were more likely to stay alive. The problem is, in modern life, this often means we jump to the worst case scenario in relationships, work, or our daily interactions. For example, let's say your partner comes home and seems unusually quiet. Your first thought might be, they're upset with me. Maybe they're even going to break up with me. A reframe would sound more like, they seem quieter than usual. That could be because they had a stressful day, they're tired, or they're distracted by something unrelated to me. I can check in without assuming the worst. Notice how the reframe doesn't ignore the change you observed. It simply opens the door to multiple explanations instead of locking you into the scariest one. To practice cognitive reframing, you have to catch the first thought. Be honest about what you're assuming. Ask yourself, what else could be true? Brainstorm at least 3 possible reasons that don't involve catastrophe. And choose the most balanced and likely perspective. Not overly negative, not unrealistically positive, just something grounded in facts and compassion. The goal isn't to erase concern completely, it's to keep your response tethered to reality so you can address actual problems instead of imagined ones. Over time, reframing helps your brain default to more measured interpretations, which reduces anxiety and strengthens your relationships. Number 7, the energy shift technique. Sometimes you need to physically move the emotional energy through your body. This doesn't mean you need to run a marathon. Even small movements can help. Like shake your hands vigorously for 30 seconds, or do jumping jacks, dance to one song, walk around the block, stretch your arms overhead, and take deep breaths. Movement helps process stress hormones and can shift your emotional state remarkably quickly. I've seen clients go from near panic to calm just by doing a few minutes of intentional movement. Okay, I have a confession. I told you there were 7 strategies, but I lied. There's actually 8. I just couldn't leave this one out because the neuroscience behind it is just too fascinating to skip. It's called emotional surfing. And it's based on the understanding that emotions are temporary. I know we all know that, but stick with me. They rise, they peak, and fall naturally if we don't interfere with them. Instead of fighting your emotions or trying to make them go away immediately, you're going to surf them. When you feel a strong emotion coming up, don't resist it. Try your best. Instead, say to yourself, I notice I'm feeling, angry, scared, hurt, whatever. This feeling will peak and then it will pass. I'm going to breathe and I'm going to let it move through me. Set a timer for 90 seconds. Through research, honestly, tons of research. That's how long it takes for the physiological response of an emotion to move through your body if, big if, you don't feed it with more thoughts. 90 seconds. Breathe deeply and let yourself feel whatever comes up without trying to fix it, change it, or analyze it. This technique is revolutionary because most of us either suppress our emotions or get completely overwhelmed by them. Emotional surfing teaches you that you can feel your feelings without being controlled by them. You can be sad without being devastated. You can be angry without being destructive. You can be scared without being paralyzed. I've seen this technique save marriages, friendships, and people's relationship with themselves. Once you realize that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent residents, everything changes. These strategies work, but they require practice. Start with 1 or 2 of the ones I mentioned that resonated most with you and use them consistently for about a week before trying to add others. Remember, the goal isn't to never feel intense emotions. It's to respond to them in ways that align with who you want to be and the relationships you want to have. If you're someone who struggles with fear that people will abandon you, these tools can help you show up in relationships from a place of security rather than desperation. When you're emotionally regulated, you can communicate your needs clearly, set healthy boundaries, and trust that the right people will appreciate you for who you really are. Practice these techniques when you're calm, so they're available to you when you're not. Think of it like learning to drive. You practice in empty parking lots before you go getting on the highway. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more mental health content. I'd love to hear in the comments which strategy you're going to try first. Remember, emotional regulation is a skill, not a talent. Anyone can learn it with practice and patience. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.